On this temporary marae in the middle of a Wellington industrial area, these Māori people welcome a visit from their Ari Nui or Queen. Most of the hosts come from Waikato, where a group of tribes has been bound together by the King Movement for over a century. Queen Te Āti Rangikahu is the sixth member of her family to head the Māori King Movement. This Kīngitanga, as they call it, is the source of distinctive qualities of unity and loyalty among the people of the Waikato River. The Waikato River is the bloodstream for the life of the Waikato people. They take their name from it. It was a source of food in earlier days. It was a means of rapid transport, travel and communications. It is also a resting place of spirits.
Waikato River is very similar to the Ganges because it's tapu, and it's more than tapu to us because it's our cleansing water and used for everything that we know.
So these old ladies come up that night. He asked Alec, that's a Poukai boy we got, to take her down to the river. She's very old, so he leaned on Alec, help her down to the Waikato River. When he got down to the river, and he started to call and kneeled alongside the river and started to cry and chant at the same time and tapping the water. In the chant, mention all those names and those mate of her swimming during that time.
Well, just because she felt that the spirits of these people that had gone before were there in the river.
That's right. That's right.
There is a proverb about the river. Waikato taniwha rau, he piko te taniwha. Waikato, river of 1,000 bends, and on every bend a taniwha. Ripora told us about these taniwha, or spirits of the river.
Oina ngā taniwha, mōhio ki te whakalongo i ngā tātou kōrero, ki te mahi he, ki runga i te wāhi e tikana ki a rātou. Kāla mai rātou.
The taniwha in the river know and understand what we say. They act whenever they think it necessary.
Te kutungane ne.
My own brother was taken by a taniwha because one of the things about them is that they seek retribution if you do something wrong.
Some of these taniwhas, when people die, they make themselves appear in many ways. Some of them come back as birds, some of them come back as animals, some of them are good, and some of them are bad.
Have you seen any of these things?
Yes.
When did you see taniwhas in the river?
Well, we often see them nearly every day when we were living down in our original homeland, Mercer, Mangatapu it is. We see one there, it's always there in one part of the river. And there are certain times that we see it moving upstream. They go from place to place.
What did it look like?
It's just a very ordinary branch off a tree. And you can see it going up, upright, of course, up the river. And you know then it's one of those taniwhas. But the last time I see a big congregation of taniwha when Mauta died, King Mauta died. All forms of taniwha came up the river against the current. Some of them were shark. One was a shark, and the other one was a stingray. One was the snapper without a tail. And then some of them in logs, different types of logs and different wood. And just under the bridge there's a big eel there, about 50 feet or more in length. It has been there all the time. That is why they regarded the Waikato River as something very important.
The river was the major route of attack and retreat during the wars that ravaged Waikato in the 1860s and ended in massive land confiscations. In those times, it was a highway for the troops and gunboats of the Pākehā. In 1863, government troops broke an agreement with the King Movement and crossed into their territory. Where did they bury most of the people who fell here?
Buried in the trench here. I don't know what part. There was a lot here, all the elder.
The first place the Kingites tried to halt the troops was here at Rangiriri. Dozens of men, women and children crammed these earthwork fortifications for a day of fighting. The defenders used ladders to climb from the floor of the trenches to the parapets. There they exchanged shots with the troops.
My mother told us she was in this trench. She was with her uncle. According to my mother, it's a step. I'll go near, make him and put a bar across. And you get up. Yeah, soon one fellow say, and another fellow. Oh, sometimes it's 2 or 3 of them want to take his place, hey? He never said, hey, mate, you this time. No, nothing like that. Yeah, everybody want to get up.
And help and fight.
Yeah. Oh, well, the first one to get on the ladder, of course, he'd be up there only a few minutes there, down. Only a few minutes down.
Fighting, defeat and confiscation took a heavy toll of the land and the spirit of the Waikato people. Are there many Māoris working on the land around here now?
No, very few. Very few of them. Most of them are all gone.
The King Movement came to Waikato with the coronation of Potatau, the first king, in 1858, 5 years before the fighting with government troops began. After the wars, under the guidance of King Tawhiao and his son, King Mahuta, the movement became a focal point for recovery. About the turn of the century, Mahuta encouraged the use of this building near Morrinsville as a Māori parliament and debating forum for all Māori tribes. Whenua told us that the Parliament House was a centre for the King Movement then. Through it, they hoped to retain the rest of their lands and receive compensation from the government for the land taken after the wars.
The Kingmaker set about establishing this marae of Ruku Moana as a marae for the King Movement as a whole, for the express purpose of being a resting place for the treasures of our people.
The concept of a Māori parliament was eventually discarded. The treasures of the King Movement kept here had to be shifted. These students from Morrinsville College are brought to the marae alongside the Parliament House by one of their teachers, Wenua's son. They are among those who have inherited Waikato's past, both its pride and its deprivation. The old man was to instruct them in how to behave on a marae. The Morrinsville students were being educated in a largely Pākehā system that had taken little account of their Māori background. Within this education system, many students seemed unsettled.
The Māori pupils in the college were a problem to Pākehā teachers. In many respects it was a Pākehā problem of not knowing how to handle the specific behaviour of these kids. We felt that if we could offer Māori studies, it would give the children a sense that the school was doing something specifically for them.
To trace my ancestry back to Tarawa, my great-grandmother is a descendant from Tamamutu. Tamamutu is a descendant from Tuwharetoa, who descends from Ngākoro Irangi, who was the Tohunga of Tarawa canoe.
I think it's natural for them to want to know something about Maori. After all, they are Maori. The difficulty is to decide whether it should be taught at home by the elders or taught at school in a Pākehā climate. But the point is this, if the parents aren't going to teach, well, what are the kids going to do?
The main repository of knowledge and traditions has been the King Movement. One 20th century leader in particular consolidated these traditions, Princess Te Puia Herangi. Piri Potapu, Master Carver, was one of Te Puia's first proteges.
When I first went into the school at Rotorua, Te Puia told me that I want you to go to the school in search of the culture of your ancestors, in the way of carving, all other matters concerning their arts and crafts. And when you get it, you come back and give it out to the people. So when I came back, I started teaching whoever they want to learn.
Today, about 20 men are being trained as carvers here at Turangawaewae, centre of the King Movement. Under Piri Potapu, they learn the old tapu skills and styles. Do you feel it's important for you as a kaumātua to organise things so that they'll all be carried on once you've gone?
Well, that's the way I feel about it. Very much.
It's up to us to keep it going. I mean, if we stop doing it, well, there'll be no more Kīngitanga.
This is Turangawaewae marae near the mouth of the Waikato River. The people here are preparing for their annual Poukai, a formal visit by the Queen and her party of councillors and elders. Each year, a series of Poukai are held on maraes throughout Waikato. They are the most important regular rallying points for the King Movement. Poukais allow the Queen to visit her people and consider their achievements and their problems. They also allow the people to demonstrate loyalty to her. The whole community becomes involved in preparations.
The butcher room there, the hangi here, the cookhouse there. Marati mahingirama. Karoni hara te koro to Galato. Already there's 3 or 4 of them in group. Like that's very say got 6 in there in the hangi. Could be 5 in there, could be 4 in the cookhouse.
They got their own job on the hanging, and some in there doing their own job in there, and all the women doing their own job. They all got jobs.
You see the next man stuck with his job, you're helping him, another man helping him. Everything's easy. Might be a lot of backfight tomorrow, but...
He's over, eh, Tai? He's over. He's over.
Te kōrero o ku tūpuna. I kōrero ai mo te Poukai. Ia tāwhiao, a timatangia tēnei mea te Poukai.
According to my ancestors, the Poukais were begun by King Tāwhiao. In his time, the people of Waikato were forced to go to other places in search of work. They went off to cut flax and dig gum.
A te ka whakaaro, te kingira, me pewe ki te itanaiwi. O me peni peha kaupapa maka, me hoka tū he Poukai, he Poutangata.
The king realized he had to evolve a system that would allow him to see his people on a regular basis, and them to see him. This was why the Poukais came into being.
Te wakahuringa o te Poukai raka, ngā kupu kōrero, hei whāngai I te pani I te pouaru I te rawakore.
The basic philosophy behind it was that it was an occasion when the widowed, the orphaned, and the poor could be fed.
Tēnei mea te Poukai. I whakatakotongi ai e rātou, tō lātou huinga I te kitenga te king, whakatakotongi he takoha mā lātou.
On the set date, people would bring their gifts of food and put them next to a pole erected on the marae. In this way, all the people were fed.
It's something we look forward to every year, and it's a day we're very much appreciative for our Queen.
The Poukai at Turangawaewae is held particularly in memory of King Mahuta, who brought the first Poukai to this marae. Ripora recalls the time Mahuta visited the marae in 1912. He had a premonition that her father was about to die.
The only thing that she can remember, after Mahuta arrived, even before entering the door, he sang that song and went over to her father and still singing and said something, and not long he went back on the same launch, and a few days after, Dad died.
The old lady has never forgotten the song of prophecy that Mahuta composed and sang to her father. The headquarters of the King Movement is further up the river at Turangawaewae marae in Ngārawawahia. The name was taken from a 19th century prophecy of King Tawhiao, that in the time of his grandson, Ngārawawahia would become the Turangawaewae or standing place of the Kīngitanga. One of his granddaughters, Princess Tupuia, dedicated her life to fulfilling this prophecy. After the great influenza epidemic of 1918, she brought a small band of orphans and workers here to build a pa from nothing. They travelled up the river from Mercer in barges.
That particular day when we left Mercer, I can look back on it now. I could just imagine the feelings of people, our ancestors, when they left Hawaii. Because their families, they were torn away from their families. And some of the old people was left behind. And a quite amount of wailing and crying and speech making, of course. Poro, that means farewell and good wishes. Well, the same thing happened to us at Mercer. Our families too were divided. Some stayed back and same came on. I was only 15 at the time, and we left some of our best friends behind. We too was crying.
Poukai Katipa was Tupuia's husband and one of her chief organisers.
When we went out to raise money for the marae, each of us had only one suit. Apart from our Māori costumes, that was all we had. Now there was a dance after every concert, but because we had spent so long on the road with only one set of clothing and footwear, most people's shoes had worn out. We couldn't replace them because all the money we were getting went straight back to Turangawaewae. Some people's shirts were torn right down the back, but they put on ties and hid the tears in their shirts by putting on their jackets. Everywhere we performed in the north, Tupuia would have the money sent straight back to Turangawaewae the next morning.
Within 10 years, Michael, we had 3 halls. The first one was too small, and then built another one. It wasn't long before we found out it wasn't big enough. Then we broke that one down. And the third one, we dedicated ourselves to all the work. We never thought of ourselves to better ourselves in our conditions at home. We spent most of our time in working to improve this place.
When we had put up the ridgepole in the meeting house Mahinarangi, we looked at the Waikato River. It was very rough, as though it was being stirred. We paid little attention. But when we looked back a while later, we suddenly saw a log on the surface. To our surprise, we saw it was floating against the current, not with it. In my opinion, it was a sign that we were being blessed by our ancestors who have departed from this world.
Tupuya's workers sang this song as they built Turangawaewae. Starting from a blackberry-covered riverbank, they developed the largest marae complex in the country under her direction. Today, Turangawaewae is the headquarters of Waikato. It also stands as a memorial to Tupuya, now recognised as having been one of the most effective communal leaders in the country. On the day of the Tauranga Nui Poukai, workers are up at first light. The next few hours will bring the fulfilment of weeks of planning and hard work. Activities begin with a dawn service to mark the day. And the men, they don't interfere, they leave you to your job?
Yes. They know our job and they look after ngā ni mai. Well, like her, me and Kīngitanga and ngā kaumātua, we look after the house. It's a hard job, but you know, me papai ngō kōtira pai noi, mahi mama noi. When you got a good gang working, pai noi mama noi.
You don't feel left out of things when being stuck out there while other things are happening out the front here?
We know exactly what's going on outside. we were brought up amongst it, you see.
By 10 o'clock in the morning, the first visitors are arriving. Honging with the local people, the visitors become part of the host group. The old meeting house on this marae was called Rangi Wahitu. Ripora told us how some members of her family broke the old rules of tapu and dismantled the house to use it for other purposes.
Keep the potato away,
That might be the outcome why all the family died.
I think so.
I think so. Something old. They used that, part of that old rangiwai for a potato house.
Potato house. And after this, the fish coming. And I get up early the first day, the fish.
Good.
Kateo kahare mai ki te haui ka. Ka ki te e tolua ku tini ki kateo ka hau. Ki te ku te ngātu ko tēne rāwa ko takutungane. Nā tini tērā, nā te kahuia. Nā. Kariro mai takutungane iau ku kone. Ka teo kāre mai ki te hau ka tako ki ngātu ko pakarumia mai te whareraka. Ko pakarumia mai ei wai tau tai. Ka te ko ket. Nā wai tērā mai wawa. Ka te ka ki mai nāna.
Speaking about this old house, remember it was taken over by her brother and then her husband brought it back as a house for them for the time being until they got another house up. After that, one of her family went over to get the old house and brought it down here for firewood, part of the old Rangiwahi too. Oh, that's bad. Because she was grieved over that, and the outcome was her own brother who was drowned. To see because the mother of the old houses.
After you've been received, you sat down. And
about 20 years ago, the old man, my father, said, "Come over here." The idea was to pass on some of our custom traditions. And I suppose this is born out of desire to pass down from one generation to the next. It's been done in the past. And I remember saying to him, "Oh, get stuffed. I don't want anything to do with it. Not bothered." But I found 20 years later, especially when I was down to South Island, there were occasions when we went out to visit maraes down in the south, where I'd be expected to speak to marae, if I call it. And it was only in these situations that I became embarrassed with the fact that I didn't know enough. Because of the embarrassment, not only what I felt, but what people were telling me. "Oh, you should know that. You're Maori." I was determined then that if I was going to be taught anything about my Māori tongue, then I'd come home. By that I meant coming home to the old man. Going back to ask him was a bit difficult for me to do, because I had to swallow my pride to go back in time and say, "All right, we're passing something down." And because of the manner in which I turned him down 20 years before, he was a little bit reluctant to pass us down. But thankfully, over the last 5 or 6 months, this barrier between us has sort of broken down, so that now I can ask for the things that I should know about.
The consciousness of their Māoritanga being switched over from the negative kind of what Pākehās call gang behaviour, an inferiority complex, if you like, the joking about Maori time, Maori ways of doing things amongst themselves. This seems to me to have diminished and to have been replaced by the idea that they can do things, they can succeed, and it's showing up in areas outside of Maori studies as well.
The idea of setting up a Centre for Maori Studies and Research was really one of the first plans that the university evolved, and from 1965 onwards it's been negotiating with government for this. And to begin with, we thought we were going to have a ready acceptance of the scheme, and then it seemed to found and went on and on and on, and we haven't really had much in the way of funds from the government yet.
Why do you think there was resistance to the idea of a centre?
I don't know. We tried very hard to find out why this was so, but we didn't. We weren't satisfied that we really got sorts of answers. I suspect that people didn't think these things were really very important.
This welcome at the University of Waikato is for a group of teachers invited for a Māori language seminar. They are to be instructed by Waikato elders.
A special chant is performed by one speaker when Waikato people go onto a marae for the first time. It is a relic of the past. Its function is to clear away any evil spirits that might be on the marae. At the end of the chant, the people have reached the center of the marae. The first section placates all the things that might be in front of you. I may be uncertain about whether you have put a spell on me or can practice black magic. So to keep myself safe, I chant. In the second part, The words indicate that the spirits ahead of us have been placated, and we are now safe from many evils. In the third section, I elevate myself very high indeed, because I have overcome anything you might have laid across my path, and hence the quote, "My heart and your heart now beat as one. We are now on equal terms."
The Queen's party comes on to the Turangawaewae marae and the Poukai is underway. For the local people, the climax of their work has begun. First duty is to pay tribute to the dead, to ancestors and those who have passed away since the last Poukai was held here. The formal speech-making begins. Whati Tamati, oldest Waikato orator, spoke of King Mahuta's last visit to the marae in November 1912. At the time of Mahuta's visit, the king had sung a waiata. Whati invited anybody there who could remember it to stand up and sing it with him.
foundation for holding this function was laid by King Mahuta. I merely stand here in support of his idea. The only thing I'm worried about is that I might die from exposure from the rain. By the way, Waka, don't feel that I should come over to you. You're the worker. You're the one who should come and get things. So come and collect our gift. Now, how about a song, ladies, to speed up the close of our speeches?
The Queen's party contribute formally to the Poukai with a koha or gift of money. In the old days, it would have been food. The ritual feast of the Poukai will follow. The dining room will cater for 3 successive sittings. Later, there will be discussion about the business of the King Movement. The local people will talk about their work on behalf of Turangawaewae, and the Queen's spokesman will tell them about activities throughout the movement as a whole. It is this close contact in the Kīngitanga between leaders and people that is the source of the strength that is Waikato.
Tātou te mai tīma tātou aroa kia koutou. You feel sad that your old people have gone murder?